Here's a quick preview of the Rival Consoles project we'll be exploring. Many of the sounds came from my Rival Console sample library, linked below. Chosen to recreate the synths from Recovery to showcase what's going on inside an actual Rival Consoles record. The main plug patch is relatively simple, just a single sawtooth with envelope 1 controlling its shape over time. The noise oscillator is there for that transient pluck the original has. I documented the process of building this patch over on my Patreon and started off by overcomplicating it. I left some of the remnants of that overthinking in here, with this modulation matrix being twice as long. I'll bypass each of these modulations with the synth playing so you can hear what each one adds. Envelope 2 is opening up the filter, creating that plucky tonality. But to make this more interesting, I'm using the velocity as an aux source to determine the amount of modulation. Note on random triggers a random value for each note, which is modulating this pan control. So every time a note is pressed, the panning for that note is randomized. Because of the speed of the notes, we get this lush, wide pluck sound with way more stereo interest. LFO 1 is controlling the detune value of the oscillator, and with this shape, I'm emulating the pitch drift you'd get from analog gear. I'm then using the velocity again to control the filter cutoff and the decay of envelope 2. So the velocity level is controlling both how much high frequency content is present and how long each pluck note lasts. Finally, note number refers to the number of the MIDI notes being played. So, playing higher notes produces a higher modulation value, which in this case opens up the filter cutoff more. That's the main patch, which I'm layering with a second version, playing an octave higher. The patch is different, but it's using the same principles. The third and final patch is a detuned pad to help support the main pluck synth. The main differences from the pluck patch is the long attack on envelope 1, giving us that sweeping rise, and the subtle pitch drift. For that drift, I'm using a combination of LFO 1 and envelope 3, modulating the detune amount, plus a chaos LFO that's providing the pitch wobble during the sustained portion of the sound. I'll exaggerate it here. I like using the Chaos LFOs because you can inject some interesting movement based on the pattern they follow. This swirling motion is perfect for pitch drift. If all this sounds confusing, the patch is available in the sample library and for patrons. I then exported all of these layers into Pause Stretch, a free plugin that allows you to slow down a piece of audio thousands of times. I'm keeping the timing the same, just using Pause Stretch for the tonality. I've got a bandpass filter on this, followed by a sidechain to the synth, meaning this layer swells in and out between the synth plucks. That's followed by a ping pong delay and an auto panner to spread the sound out. Combined with the chords, these create a bed that sits underneath and supports the plucks. The melody is where this patch really comes alive. I found the chords online, but they didn't account for the inversions Rival Consoles was using. After some messing around, or a lot of messing around, I found the right notes, but I have no idea what these chords actually are, or what inversions are being used. My theory knowledge just doesn't stretch that far yet. If someone could enlighten me in the comments, I'd really appreciate it. We've got just 3 chords, with the second 2 repeating 2.5 times to give us the full intro sequence of Recovery. I have made the whole progression from Recovery 2 available to patrons. Inside the melody, we've got a 32-note pattern of 8 notes giving us those rolls, followed by the chords chopped into 8th notes, sequenced on a 16th note grid. This somewhat unexpected placement of notes contributes to the alive, organic feel of the melody, but the element that really takes this to the next level and gives it that Rival Console sound is the velocity. For context, here's how the riff sounds with all the velocities set to the same value. Now with the velocity pattern, and if you remember the serum patch itself, I've got a bunch of parameters being controlled by the velocity too. So these velocity values down here are doing way more than just affecting note volume. They follow a kind of wave pattern too, a sweep up for the roll, followed by an immediate drop, then a slow rise. After that, they jump down and back up in twos, which gives us that bouncing effect. There's some velocity variation between chords, which I've tried to match as closely as possible to the original. Patrons can access this project, MIDI and stems. Processing wise, for the tone of the plucks, I'm using this saturator and this multiband exciter, both from Process Audio. Then I've got this free stereo widening plugin to add some width. Rival Consoles works almost exclusively with analog synths and outboard guitar pedals. Because of that, I've added a couple of Hornet Audio's plugins to move us away from the perfect world of digital into something a bit more harmonically imperfect and interesting. I love their stuff because it's super affordable. You can grab both of these for under $10 and they just sound great. This clipper is shaving around 5 dB off the peaks while adding some subtle distortion. Here's an AB. The Soothe plugins are here just as a sidechain to the kick and snare. This is true of any soothes you see in this project. I started the drums with samples from the Rival Consoles library. The processing on each looks like this, with the Carver device acting as a transient shaper. Here's the percussion layers. They're a mix of audio loops and resequenced samples. For this one, I've chopped it to create a shaker loop. This one's made by chopping up some noise for texture and a wood block acting as a ghost snare, with the velocities on each randomized. This is some kind of chain Foley sound. I've added a multi-shaper, a Mustone plugin for live users, which is controlling the auto pan. The percussion group is using the same plugins as before, so I won't go over each one again, but here's an AB. A similar mix of plugins is on the drum group processing. Really, I'm just aiming to keep the drums soft tonally, but still powerful enough to carry the rhythm of the track. Just before I AB this chain though, notice how in terms of headroom, we're staying about the same. The peak level actually drops a little, but I'm increasing the average loudness through added harmonics and soft clipping. This is something analog gear does naturally to varying degrees, but with digital, these aspects of analog have to be emulated to fully replicate the gear's tonality. For the texture, I've got vinyl and tape noise, along with a field recording of a park, all sitting in one group. Then I've got a duplicate of that group, but it's playing only the delta signal from the clipper, so it's outputting just the sound the clipper is adding, basically the distortion. I'm running that into a second clipper just to shave off any remaining transients. When paired with the main texture group, it adds a bit more character. We've got the same Hornet plugins on each of these groups, and then a low cut, clipper, glue compressor, and sidechain to the drums, all sitting on the master texture group. The bass is just a single sine wave oscillator from Operator playing the root notes of the chords. The only processing is a sidechain to the kick and a glue compressor. Reverb wise, Rival Consoles loves his spring and plate reverbs. I've gone with a spring reverb on the snare and percussion since it works better for transient material, and then a mix of a plate and hall on the synths. If you'd like to dive deeper into Rival Console sound, as well as download this project and stems, you can find them on my Patreon. For more insights into a similar production style, check out this video where I break down the sound of Bonobo. Thank you for watching.